Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, baseball fans and history buffs, welcome to this special presentation of the Big Game James Show, presented by thinkslinger.org.
This is WHIP Weekly.
And now, presenting your most stately host, Big Game James.
Stately, eh? Well, I appreciate the introduction, but stately. Well, I suppose it is election season, and we have all kinds of candidates just coming out the gates way too early in search of our votes. Who do we have? Hillary Clinton announcing her bid for the presidency already. Come on, man. We got about a year and a half to go. And who? Rand Paul up in Kentucky? Come on. Calm down. I'm not ready for the bombardment of the beggary that comes with, the voting process. Let's give it a rest for a minute. But this show is not about politics. So I'm assuming stately was the introduction meant for my wonderful voice or something. I don't know. I'm not going to go into that. There are no politics in this show, as there are no politics in baseball, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you heard me correctly. Anyhow, WHIP Weekly is a broadcast dedicated to pitching. So we're going to talk about pitching today. More specifically, we're talking about no-hitters. But instead of going into the world of hyperbole and talking about how great a no-hitter was and all these other things that we tend to do with such a great feat, such an astonishing feat. I don't know if you've ever been in the stands for one of these games, but they are absolutely phenomenal. I'm not going to take away from that. But what I'm more interested in today is talking about is revealing to you some players you might not know, and then talking about their backgrounds, and perhaps going into a little bit about how these no-hitters happened. We're going to talk about a lot of firsts, as in like the first no-no on record. We're going to talk about the first no-no, or the person who threw the first no-no from 50 feet. Yes, pitchers used to be closer to the batter, but there was a point in time where the mound was moved back a little bit, and we're going to discuss the first no-hitter that happened from 50 feet. We're also going to discuss Don Larson. You can't talk about no-hitters without discussing Don Larson. So real quick, we're going to take a break. I'm going to introduce you right now to a band, one of my favorite bands from Seattle, called the Space Cretins, with a song called Rock the Area. They have a special place in my heart. Back in my rock and roll days of playing music all the time, this was one of the bands we played with frequently, and they are still to this day one of my favorite bands. And I'm going to get Paul Diamond Blow on this show one of these days. So Paul, I'm calling you out. You're coming on the show. So here's the Space Cretins with Rock the Area.
We're gonna trip the electric sky. Now Walker waiting at the plate. Kyle into the motion, the 1-1 pitch. Check swing, it's on the outside corner at the knees, 1-2. And now Darryl Kyle is just one strike away. He stands behind the rubber, hand in glove, pulls at his cap. Now gets up on top, gets his sign from Scott Service. Here's the windup. 1-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. He did it. Darryl Kyle with the first no-hitter in the National League in 1993, and his teammates are mobbing him in front of the mound.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the call from Darryl Kyle's 1993 no-hitter when he no-hit the New York Mets as a member of the Houston Astros. Welcome to today's program about no-hitters, but more specifically about the players behind these no-hitters. And to get us going, way back in 1991, Major League Baseball they re-clarified their definition of what a no-hitter constitutes. And this from the rule book I'm quoting. It is a game in which a pitcher or pitchers gives up no hits while pitching at least 9 innings. A pitcher may give up a run or runs so long as he pitches 9 innings or more and does not give up a hit. Now, according to this more specific definition, there have been at least 285 games in professional baseball's history that can be defined as a no-hitter. Now, the old definition, which was, of course, prior to 1991, it didn't include innings. It just said that a pitcher simply needed to throw a game in which he did not give up a hit. It said nothing about runs. It said nothing about other pitchers coming into the game. There have been some combined no-hitters in which more than one pitcher was credited with a no-hitter under this rule. One of the most famous was Babe Ruth's thrown way back. Let me dig through my notes here to find the numbers on that. But yeah, Babe Ruth and Ernie Shore are credited with throwing a combined no-hitter way back in 1917. This was the game in which Ruth was a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. This is before the Bambino's curse or whatever you call it. This is when he was a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. Ruth was ejected after walking his first batter. Now, what happened isn't very clear, but what I will tell you is Babe Ruth was tossed after facing his first batter. He walked him, and then Ernie Shore came on and pitched the remainder of the game, and they, of course, went on to defeat the Washington Senators 4-0 in that contest from June the 23rd, 1917. So, 285 games fit this description in which no-hitters occurred, whether one pitcher was involved, 2, there have been some with 3. I believe I saw one where there was like 5 Oakland Athletic pitchers involved in a no-hitter in a game very long, well, actually not that long ago, but nevertheless. What I'm actually including in this 285 game definition is, of course, a single no-hitter thrown in the National Association. Now, this is before National League, American League, way before modern baseball. This is way back in 1875. It's sort of it's been contested whether the National Association's numbers should be considered in the record books. Though the National League has at times been considered a major league and at times it hasn't, it's still up for debate. But I'm including a one Joe Borden. He has got a pretty interesting background in this discussion. His no-hitter was undoubtedly the first professional league no-hitter. Now, that much is not really up for debate. So a little bit about Joe Borden, Joseph Emily Borden. He was born in Jacobstown, New Jersey, May 9th, 1854. Made his professional debut July the 24th in 1875. He was a small guy, 5'9", 140 pounds. A righty. Borden is best known for winning the first game in National League history as a pitcher, playing for the Boston Red Caps in 1876. But a year prior, he threw the first professional no-hitter, and that happened on July the 28th, 1875, while pitching for the Philadelphia Whites of the aforementioned National Association. He joined the team late in the season after their regular pitcher, Cherokee Fisher, had been dismissed from the team for the typical, at the time, drunkenness or general misbehavior. He was a mischievous type guy. He was one of those classic players who would go out and get bombed and come to the game completely drunk and throw just these wonderful games. But the league was coming down on that kind of behavior around that time, and the team, the Philadelphia Whites, had basically had enough of Cherokee Fisher and his drunken display. So they got rid of him, brought in Joe Borden, who only went on to pitch a no-hitter, the first in professional baseball history. But Borden didn't get off to such a hot start. He actually lost his first two games pretty badly. He went on to, but he did go on in his third game to throw a 4-0 shutout of the Chicago White Stockings, and that being his third start. No hits were allowed. There were only 500 spectators at this event, unfortunately, which was held at the Jefferson Street grounds. The result reportedly of threatening weather, gray skies, terrible thunderstorms in the area, apparently kept people away, according to these early reports. His no-hit game, the one that I'm speaking of, was the only one thrown in the 5-year history of the National Association. So that really stands out. If you check out the book, The Boston Braves, 1871 to 1953, the book claims that Borden was signed by Boston, by the Braves, after the team was impressed by him in 1875. A lot of it had to do with that no-hitter, and they agreed to pay him $2,000 a year for a 3-year contract. But when he went to the Braves, he pitched so poorly that the baseball writers began calling him Josephus the Phenomenal, sort of a tongue-in-cheek thing, which was kind of it was a very common thing for baseball writers to do at the time, to sort of make jabs and barbs at players through satire. It turns out when he couldn't pitch as well as the team wanted him to, he was turned into a groundskeeper and a fix-it man. So he's still, he was still employed by baseball, but he was a groundskeeper and he was not pitching any more games. His notable achievements, he did pitch 200 innings in that 1876 season. So Joe Borden, first no-hitter, according to the 1991 Major League Baseball rule on no-hitters, with the first in professional baseball history. He did this, as a reminder, he did this in the National Association, which is not part of MLB today. And